Hey folks, Thomas here. Welcome back to Mir's Lab. In today's episode, we are going to attempt to repair this Sunbeam heating pad that my dog ate. If that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned. Let's have a closer look at what we're working with here. So here is, let's move that out of the way. Here's the heating pad itself. Pretty big size, and it's got this jack on it here, and it's got 4 conductors right here. And the heating pad itself is just fine on this one. Everything works okay with this. The trouble comes over here with the heating pad control unit here. So it's got the cable that plugs into the wall here. That's just a regular 2-prong power cable. No trouble there. Yeah, but my dog got hungry and chewed right through this part right here. And that is the issue that we're dealing with here. So what we're going to have to do is we'll cut back this wire right here and get rid of all the messed up part here, and then we'll strip the sheathing away here to expose the copper wire on the inside, and then we'll do the same thing over here, but we'll have to be really careful because they're here. Let's zoom right up and on this. We'll have to, oh no, let's get right here on this. There we go. We'll have to be really careful with this because there's not a lot of wire to work with right here. So we'll have to really carefully use our knife and cut away this protective outer sheathing here, and then we'll expose the copper wires, and then we'll connect them together. And yeah, that's how we're going to go about that. So let's get started without any further ado. I want to make a quick note here because I think that this is something interesting. Okay, so remember this jack here on the actual heating pad. This has 4 conductors here. But let's have a closer look at this wire. This is a 3-conductor wire right here. So I'm not entirely sure what connects to what here, but if we have a closer look, we can get a little bit closer to the solution. Okay, so we see that the plug, that's got 4 holes on it and 4 little things here, so that definitely goes in there. Now this plug can go in either way. It's bi-directional. You can go in that way, or you can flip it upside down and you can go in that way. And what that means is that it doesn't, that it doesn't really matter which one of these are connected, but it does, of course, but it doesn't at the same time. So if we hold these 2 wires together, you can see that the middle wire obviously connects to itself. That's pretty straightforward. But the ones on the outside, it could connect like that, or you could flip it over and connect it like that. But you see, because the connector can go into the port either way, like that way, or this way, you see, it doesn't really matter which way the outside wires are connected. So I think that in this case, we're probably just fine. Before we move ahead, maybe we will take out our multimeter and we'll do some resistance readings and just find out what's connected to these pins on the inside of this heating pad here. Okay, so I've got my multimeter out here, and we'll put it on the resistance reading here. And let's find out if any of these pins are connected together here. So I'm just going to start with this one over here on the left-hand side, right here. Then I'll check the rightmost pin. Oh, 66 ohms. Okay, so we have a continuity reading there. And so that would be one of the heating elements right there, these 2 pins right here. Okay? So that's one heating element right there. And you can see 67 ohms of resistance. So what's on the inside of this heating pad here is some really thin wire. It's called, it's probably nichrome wire. I wonder if I have some over here I can show you. I don't really have any of it handy. But it's just some really thin wire, and it has some more resistance than regular wire does. So when you pass current through it, it heats up, and that's how the heating pad works. And so that would be one of the wires right there. So let's check the inside pins and see if they're connected. Okay, we also have a reading right there. So we have between the 2 inside pins, we have 41, 42 ohms. Okay, so let's see if the outside of the inside pins are connected. Oh, okay, so I'm going to put the black lead on the outside pin here on the left. and I'll go to the one right beside it. No connection there. No connection between the first and the third pin. And we have a 66 ohm reading between the outside pins. Let's get our wiring hands warmed up here with the easy part, and then we'll move on to the tricky part after that. So first thing we want to do is we just want to remove all of this chewed up part of the wire here. And we don't want to take off too much because there's only so much to work with here, you know. But we want to get rid of as much as we can, and we'll take it down to about there. And I'm just using these regular, simple little wire strippers here. Okay, so since this wire is pretty thick, what I'm going to do to separate the leads is I'm just going to hold it against the desk here, and I'm just going to take my knife, and I'm going to cut about a 1-inch gouge right through the middle of them, just to separate the leads. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to strip away about a 1/4, maybe 3/8 of an inch. And this looks like it's probably 16 gauge, so maybe I'll try that. Yeah, 16 is what this is. Okay. Okay, so I've got that stripped away. Now before I do anything else, I'm just going to clean up the desk as I go here. I'm going to take this wire and I'm just going to twist it like this. There we go. And that'll make it easier to connect these wires to the other ones on the plug. Okay, so now we've got that wire properly sort of trimmed up and ready to go. That looks nice. Okay, now it's time to move on to the plug, and this is going to be the trickier part. So remember, like I said, we're going to try and remove this outer sort of strain relief here, the sheathing on the outside, and then that'll allow us access to the cables on the inside. So I'm just going to try cutting away a little piece at the end of it first. I'm going to try and remove most of it here. Just carefully make a cut there. And you know what? I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and see if that helps me. Yeah, it does help pull it off there a little bit. So I'm just going to pull that off. Oh yeah, that works actually pretty easy. Yeah, it actually came off not too bad. So I'm going to remove a little bit more. Being really careful not to actually cut the actual wires themselves. Just the tip. I'm not cutting all the way through, just a little bit. And then I can just use the actual pliers just to tear the last little piece so that I stayed well away from the wires. There we go. Okay, so the strain relief is now removed. Now I can get to these wires. And I left just a little bit of the strain relief there. You know, maybe I'll just tidy that up just a little bit, but very carefully. Cut that off there just so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, I'm not going to get too picky though. Okay, so now we want to separate these ones really carefully, just like we did with the other wire. And I'll leave about a 1/4 inch at the end. There we go. Okay, so now we can expose these. And now let's trim these. So remember, go to 16. Do about a 1/4 inch here, really carefully. We really don't want to ruin this part here. We only have a tiny little bit of wire to work with. So we want to make sure that we don't accidentally cut the inner copper wire itself. Very careful here. There we go. Okay. That's done now. Okay, so now let's twist these. This last one here too. Okay. All right, and now that's what that looks like right there. And that's how that turned out. Okay, so here's situation here. So we're just going to twist these back together, and then we'll add some solder to them, and then we should be good to go. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to separate these leads a little bit more here, because we want to be able to put some heat shrink tubing around these connections after they're twisted and soldered together. But to do that, I need to be able to separate these leads a little bit more. So I'm just going to do that right now. Just going to score this a bit here. I'm going to score perhaps another inch of it or so. And just a light little score on that side, and I'm going to lightly score this side too. I think that works better than cutting all the way through. There we go, and then I can just pull it apart like that. There we go. And there's not a chance I'm accidentally going to cut all the way down to the inner part. Okay, and you know, I'm just going to give myself just a little bit extra, just say another ½ inch. You want to make sure you have lots of room on the wire to put your heat shrink tubing. You don't want to cut away too much to make it look messy. But you want to make sure that you keep the heat shrink tubing far away from the part that you're actually applying heat to, so that it doesn't start shrinking before you want it to. Okay. So let's get some heat shrink tubing here now. Okay, I got a whole bunch of this stuff here. Okay, so what we want to get is some tubing that has a diameter just a bit bigger than the actual wire here. So that's pretty good. Might use that one right there. Yeah, I think that's the one we'll use. Okay, so we need 3 pieces of it. Okay, so I'm going to go like that, okay. And another thing that we don't want to forget to do here is, okay, I'm just going to take those off of there for now. Okay, so now we have the heat shrink tubing that's going to cover up these 3 connections here. But now what we also want to do is we want to have another piece that covers up all 3 of those connections and also goes over here to provide some strain relief. And for that, we'll use a bigger piece of the tubing here. So let's just see if we got a piece that'll fit over all of that. Yeah, you see, this will fit over all of that quite nicely, this one right here. And then what we could do is we could use this little piece in the middle, and then we'll do like a double layer sort of thing. We'll use that, and we'll use this. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so let's do all that. I'm just going to separate these a little bit more too. Really carefully. Just to make sure that the heat shrink tubing can really go up on either, you know, I don't want the heat shrink tubing to just cover up to there. I want it to go over here and be about 1/8 of an inch on either side of the connection. Okay, so here we go. So first, let's do I want to how much of this do I want to use? Dash. Yeah, I'll just go like that. And because I don't want to necessarily use all of this. I don't need to use all of it, but I definitely want to. Yeah, I'm going to use all of that piece, and not quite all of this one. I'll use like half of this one. Yeah. I like having a double layer of the heat shrink tubing, or even multiple layers, even more than that is nice. Okay, so let's put all these on here now, starting with the biggest one first. Second biggest one, and these little ones. This, by the way, is the part that I always forget to do. I always forget to put the heat shrink tubing on, and I get carried away with the soldering and I do that, and then I remember, oh shoot, I forgot to put the tubing on, or I forgot to put the sleeve on the jack of the plug or something like that all the time. Okay, so here we go. So once again, remember, it doesn't really matter which one, the middle one obviously connects to the middle wire here, but it doesn't really matter which one these outside wires are connected to, because the plug can go in either way. So I think that we'll just get started here by twisting this together. And how we're going to do this twist is we're going to sort of cross the wires over, and then we're going to sort of twist them around each other like this. Okay? Okay, and when you do that, see, hopefully you can see that there. But they sort of already hold themselves together pretty well. Okay, so now let's just get something to hold this up so that we can solder that. And we'll just go like that. Whoops, we'll put that back on there in a second. And we'll add some solder on here. There. Just took a moment. The wires didn't want to take the solder at first, so I just had to wait for it to get hot enough. There we go. So now that's a nice connection right there. Okay, so now we'll do the other ones as well. Okay, let's do this middle one, and we'll twist this now. That's a good one. Ah. Okay, just go like that. Hold that up there like that. That's a nice one. Good. Oh yeah, that turned out nice that time. Look at that one. Okay, now let's not forget to put that last little piece of tubing on there. Okay, now let's solder this one, or no, let's twist this one, and then we'll solder it. Take your time with these twists, and make sure you get them really nice, equally twisted on both sides, and nice and snug connections. You don't have anything poking out. There you go, like that. Okay, now let's solder that last one. A little bit too much solder on my iron. There we go. Good. Yeah, that's a nice connection too. Look at that. Okay, so we got 3 nice connections here now. Okay. Look at that. See? And now we can put this, so they're not hot enough to heat up the heat shrink tubing, so now we can place that over there. Okay. And you can see that that's going to equally cover up the connection, and it has a good sort of buffer area on both sides of the connection as well. So we'll put all 3 of those over those, cover those up. Right, so they're all individually isolated and from each other as well too, those power connections. It's really important to make sure they have good isolation because that is, you know, that's power, and that's going to be a fairly high current. Probably a line right there. So okay, so now I've got this little this cool little heat gun thingy right here. Just use that to heat up the connections. Okay, yeah, have a look at that. Look at that. Okay. So before we go ahead and put the rest of the heat shrink tubing on, let's just go and plug this in right now and give it a quick test. So here's what I have to test things with here. I know you can't really see it very well in the shop, but I've got my mirror's safety box over here. And on this, I've got a switch here where I can add some current limiting by way of sort of like a dim bulb circuit. There's some light bulbs on the top of this guy over here. And I've got a variac in it here, so I can vary the output of the voltage here. And it's just like 120 volts right here. But if I flick this on, there we go. Now we've got voltage here, but it's turned all the way down. So what we can do is we can just sort of bring it up slowly, if you will. So let's just plug that in there. Plug this in here. Boom, boom, bing. There we go. And let's bring it up slowly and see if any sparks fly here. Okay. We'll get ready to turn the voltage off real quickly if we need to. Bring it up. Nothing's catching on fire yet. This is good. Okay. So let's turn on the heating thing. Oh, it turns on. Nice. Okay, it's working. It's a good sign. Yeah. It's getting a little bit warm. It's working. Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's turn it off here. And let's finish this up. Cool. Okay, so let's unplug that from there. There. Okay, so we know that the soldering, the solder connections are all good, so now we just need to finish this job up and make it look all nice and neat and tidy. Okay, so now let's get that heat shrink tubing. We'll put that over there like so. We'll just cover as much of that up as we can. Like that. Okay. Let's melt that one. I love how that just sort of presses everything together and keeps it really nice and tight and snug, the connection. It's great. Okay, so there's that one done now. Okay, now the last one here, which gives us the majority of strain relief back again. Okay, so we don't really have much strain relief here, but once we put this back on, we will have a decent amount again, because this is going to cover right up over here, and that'll cover up the wire, and then we should be okay. Here we go. So let's go and do the top end of it first, and we'll work our way down. Back and forth from one side to the other. Make sure that you're heating it nice and equally. And there we go. Okay. Give that a second to just cool down. And away we go. That's all repaired now. So we've resoldered all 3 of the wires, and we've made sure that they're individually isolated. And now we have plenty of strain relief on this wire as well too. And that should be good to put back into service and ready for my dog to eat again. Let's give it one more final test here just to make sure that everything's working okay. So we'll plug that in, plug this here, and make sure all the voltage is off first here. Plug that in there. Okay, and let's just turn the voltage all the way on here. It's already turned up, and let's turn on the heating pad, and we're in business. Everything works. Turn off the current limiting here. Everything looks fine. The safety box here, it's fused as well too. So just in case there was a short circuit or something that happened and I had the current limiting turned off, it's still fused, so it would still provide some protection at least a little bit. Okay, and let's go all the way up to 8 here and see what happens. It's just, or 6. This is maximum heating power here, and it's working. Yeah, it's good. Very happy to have this back. And yeah, I'm happy that we were able to repair this here at Mears Lab. I appreciate you all watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and you can subscribe too for more videos. I really appreciate you all watching. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.